And again, the Lombardi 8 a.m. Scramble. We're on day 3 of this, moving into and moving through the very slow part of the news cycle in the offseason. Super Bowl is over. We're waiting for the 49ers to finalize their coaching staff. They have hired Steve Wilks as their defensive coordinator, but there's probably going to be some reshuffling amongst the other positions, especially since Bobby Slowick has departed to be the Houston Texans offensive coordinator under DeMeco Ryans. So next step in this 49ers offseason is coaching staff finalization. And then we're going to have the NFL Combine, and then free agency will start. 49ers currently still need to sign 53 players this offseason to fill out the 90-man roster. Anyway, while we have a chance, while that news cycle is a little bit slower, we can make the Lombardi 8 a.m. Scramble about this. The 2023 key for Trey Lance's development. It is not pocket presence. Pocket presence is not an issue for Trey Lance right now. That, I think, is actually one of his strengths. I think he's very good at feeling the rush. I think you look at some of the sack rates for the 49ers of the past few years, Trey Lance has been right there with some of the best performances in terms of sack rates from 49ers quarterbacks since Kyle Shanahan has showed up. And, that's percentage of sack rate on dropbacks. That's, not helped by the fact that they have designed runs for him or that he scrambles a lot. He is okay in the pocket when it comes to sensing the rush, knowing when to step up. I talk a lot about the game against Seattle when he came in the second half after Jimmy Garoppolo strained his calf. There are highlight reel plays in that game of Trey Lance feeling the rush, stepping up, making a play either with his arm or with his legs. The big issue for Trey Lance that he's going to have to address, and I think he's going to have the chance to do it this offseason, or at least take some more significant strides heading into next year, is in rhythm accuracy. The play that comes to mind to me that might be the most frustrating of the season for Trey Lance last year, and I know that it wasn't a long season, but it was the route where he missed Tyler Kroft, the 49ers tight end. Would have been a touchdown against Chicago in week 1, and he just sailed the ball over his head. We watched day after day in training camp when Lance was up and then he was down, up and then he was down. The days when he was down, he was missing a lot high. The ball was sailing on him. And even on the days where he was, I think, really crisp in general, where the completion percentage in practice was where the 49ers wanted it to be, I think there were still some passes that missed high. And they missed when Kyle Shanahan tried to establish easy rhythm for him, which was the biggest issue. The Kroft play, that was a downfield shot, but it was a rhythm shot, right? Kroft was open. That's when you got to hit. The ones you really, really, really have to hit are the flat passes, the short ones, the bread and butter, the gimmies that Kyle Shanahan is going to try to embed into the offense to get you into rhythm. So moving into rhythm and then staying into rhythm with some of the easier throws, that's where Trey Lance has got to be better. And I think that's what encourages the 49ers about his development, is that he can make some of the hard throws, that cerebrally he's there. He makes the right decisions. He's been making a lot of good decisions when he's been in there for the 49ers. He feels the pocket. That's maybe even something you can't really teach. He has that taken care of. It's the in rhythm stuff and the getting into rhythm stuff, which theoretically should be the easier stuff, where Trey Lance has struggled. So how do you fix it? Well, I think it's partly a mechanical consistency thing. I think it's a repetition thing for sure. I think mechanical consistency and repetitions go hand in hand. And Trey Lance hasn't had enough of them. Kyle Shanahan in week 2 of that game against the Seattle Seahawks clearly wasn't fully comfortable with Trey Lance's passing skill set, probably wasn't comfortable with the lack of in-rhythm accuracy, so he called a lot of designed runs. For Trey Lance's career to be sustainable, he's going to have to hit the gimmies at a level that the 49ers are confident in, so that they don't have to call as many design runs, so that his legs and his escape ability is used for just that, for escaping when it's necessary, and not something that he's reliant upon on a down in and down out basis. And there you could see the catch 22. Because if Trey Lance is unable to execute the gimmies in the short passing game and he has to run. And the only way for him to execute the gimmies consistently in the short passing game and develop that in-game accuracy is by passing in game. Well, how do the 49ers develop him, right? How does Kyle Shanahan justify building that bridge of building passing comfort at a time when it's risking losing football games? And I think that was some of the issue that the 49ers ran into in week 2, and which is why they had Lance running so much. But they're going to have to just power through some of this at some point. And the 49ers' best hope is that Trey Lance can power through a lot of it this offseason, even in non-real game scenarios. Because he's going to have an opportunity here where Brock Purdy's hurt. Trey's going to be the main guy. The 49ers can simulate as much as possible in practice. They can work on the mechanics as much as possible. I mean, they changed QB coaches. They went to Brian Griese. And they've been, Trey Lance is going to be doing throwing stuff this offseason with his assortment of coaches. The more this kind of stuff gets embedded in him, the better he's going to be with the easier throws. And the 49ers' hope is that this offseason he turns into a quarterback who Kyle Shanahan can consistently trust with some of that bread and butter action in the passing game. And then it turns into the Steve Young situation, right? Steve Young was a runner to begin his career, developed into a pocket passer, and it took work. It took years. This wasn't an overnight thing. But once he became that pocket passer, the running accentuated his ability to throw. But in the NFL, the throwing has to come first. And again, I have to circle back to the good news. This is not just like every other case of a running quarterback trying to develop into a throwing quarterback. Lance already has pocket feel. He already has understanding of where to go with a football, because that North Dakota State background with Randy Hedberg and that offense, that was phenomenal for him, because that was a pro style offense where he had to decide where to go in the progression in an NFL context. That's how North Dakota State ran their offense. It wasn't like these college spread offenses where a guy like Justin Fields will go from Ohio State and there's zero translation to what he has to do at the pro level. It was different. It was more advanced at North Dakota State. And Kyle Shanahan saw Trey Lance's ability to process that. So he saw that. He obviously saw the athleticism. And I think he saw up and down throwing mechanics, but he saw some really pretty throws to go with the bad ones. So he saw inconsistency. He looks at all that and he sees a low rep count. Trey Lance, between high school, college, and now the NFL, has attempted one fewer pass than Tom Brady at age 45 did in one season, his final season in the NFL. So you could see that there is a lot of inexperience here from Trey Lance, but I think that Shanahan views that as a potential positive. He definitely did when they traded up to draft Trey Lance. He sees this as moldable clay. Here's a quarterback that I can program. Here's a quarterback that, okay, I've seen the highs because they've shown up on film, as limited as it is, and I recognize the lows. So the highs are possible to attain with some consistency because the sample isn't big enough. And if the sample gets bigger and he's programmed correctly and he develops correctly within the system, that's when the highs can become more consistent. That's what this offseason is about for Trey Lance. They finally need to get him another extended stretch so that way he can work on ironing some of these things out. And the 49ers aren't viewing this as a Brock Purdy or Trey Lance thing. They need as many capable quarterbacks as possible, because even if Brock Purdy comes back during training camp and is ready to go and is QB1, what if he gets hurt again? What if the 49ers pass protection doesn't hold up on a key play? They've only gone one season under Shanahan needing only one quarterback. That was 2019 with Jimmy Garoppolo. So even if Brock Purdy is favored after this entire offseason saga, Trey Lance might still be needed. Probably still will be needed in some way in 2023. So the more work you can do to even out these ups and downs, the better. The key for his development is developing that in-rhythm accuracy. And although a lot of that might have to happen during games, I definitely know that some of it can happen over the course of this offseason where Trey Lance will be in the firm spotlight. All right, that's been the Lombardi 8 a.m. Scramble. Let's have a fun day today. Everybody have a great one. It was fun talking to you. Take care.